friends. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tom, and the simulcast is on the air now from CBS Television for Tuesday night, the 29th of July, 1997. Liza Minnelli, one of the great stars, is here tonight, and also one of the great stars of baseball, Brett Butler of the Los Angeles Dodgers, joins us to talk about his comeback from a battle with cancer here during the past year. You know, I talked to Steve Mason on the phone today. For those of you who listened to us on the radio in years past, he is doing very, very well. He called the All-Star game for CBS Radio on the radio network, and they're sending him to the Olympic Games in Japan next February to cover that for CBS Radio. And it reminded me of the days that I did radio for ABC some years ago on about 45 stations. And one of the interviews that comes to mind was what has come to be known in radio circles as the Leon Redbone interview. Now, don't get me wrong, Leon Redbone is an enormous star. He's a tremendous talent, one of the finest singers of our time, but he is not what you would call a great interview, mainly because he is uncomfortable doing it. And on radio, if you don't know, when you have a guest, you have that person there for the entire hour. So Leon came in one night, and it was possibly the longest hour I've ever spent in broadcasting. I think I asked about 4,500 questions during the course of the hour. And there were long periods of silence, as you who have watched me over the years have come to expect. And so after this was all done, you know, the callers would call in the months following the Leon Redbone interview. And they would say, Tom, how about some highlights of the Leon Redbone interview? This became a running gag on radio. So one night I thought, you know, why not, you know, as Harry Cohn used to say in pictures, give them what they want. I said, ladies and gentlemen, here are highlights of the Leon Redbone interview. And I turned off the microphone, and we had 1 minute of silence on about 45 radio stations in North America. And the next day I found out that each one of those radio stations has what is called a dead air klaxon. So if the engineer is away from the control room, an alarm goes off to alert that person to come back because there's nothing going out over the radio transmitter. And so 240 or 45 radio engineers let me know that it would be good to run no more than 14 seconds of highlights of the Leon Redbone interview. You remember time, like remember at CNBC when Lassie was there? If you saw this, you know what happened. Lassie came with the trainer. Was it Rod Weatherwax? His son. And there was like a video cassette that you could buy for 45 or 50 bucks to train your dog to be just like Lassie. You know, a pit bull just like Lassie. And so when Lassie left in the limousine, after all, Lassie doesn't travel any other way, they took the videotape with them. And, you know, being the person I am, I went on the air shortly after they left. I said, can you believe those cheap Lassie people left with the video cassette? And within 15 minutes, they brought it back. I'll tell you a story about Lassie sometime that will amaze you. But I have to get on here with Liza Minnelli, and it's not that kind of a story. And Brett Butler of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who, by the way, was a major contributor in the Dodgers' victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates here this afternoon. He went 3 for 3, had a great day at the plate. Back with Liza Minnelli and Brett Butler, and you on the toll-free, fire them up and watch the pictures as they fly through the air. Thanks for watching, everybody.
That's certain.
We all know Liza Minnelli as the quintessential performer, always giving it her all, be it on stage, screen, or television. She is currently on tour performing songs from throughout her career and some from her newest CD, which is called Gently. And later on this week, she'll perform at the Pantages Theater here in Los Angeles. It's a great pleasure to welcome you back to CBS.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. You're at the Pantages
yes.
In your hometown. You know, there's an old bromide that you're a prophet without honor in your own hometown. Are you a little nervous about this?
I am. And it's just because it's my hometown.
Yeah.
And so many of the people I love and respect are here, and you want to do good for them, you know. But I think anybody going back to their hometown gets a little antsy, you're right.
You must know every nook and cranny of the Pantages Theater. I'm sure through the years you've been there to see pictures with your dad, with your mom.
Yes. In fact, I went to the opening of Some Came Running with Shirley MacLaine and my father. That was his picture. And my father actually won the Academy Award for Gigi at that theater. So it holds great memories for me.
Well, as they say, break a lip.
Oh.
When were you first aware here in your hometown that there were stars in the neighborhood, movie people on your block, so to speak?
I wasn't until I left.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't realize it. But the block that I lived on at one point, it was, and these were just neighbors to me.
Yeah.
so when there'd be a sing-along at home, and the neighbors come over, everybody knows that kind of thing. It would be Lana Turner. She sang good. She's wonderful. It would be Humphrey Bogart and Betty Bacall, Art Linkletter, Bing Crosby.
And these were people that your mom and dad would have in for Mr. Astaire, huh?
Yeah. The neighbors.
Yeah, exactly. And where was little Liza while all this partying was going on?
If I was lucky, under the piano.
Doing?
Listening. I loved to listen. I hated to go to bed when that was going on. So I had a route through the kitchen. And I would sneak down, and if I could, sneak under the piano, I could stay there and notice all night.
I noticed that your voice is a little raspy, and I was going to ask you about this later. You had some throat surgery over the winter, and what happened? What did they have to do?
I did a show, and I was doing the concerts at the same time, which is really kind of silly. But there was a polyp, so they removed it, and they kind of scrape your cords, and this is normal. In fact, almost everybody's had this done.
But you're not in any pain? You're not in any anguish?
No.
Yeah, okay.
And I can sing fine. I talk a little funny. It's true. But it's an amazing gift because you get back notes that you haven't had in years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's great fun.
But no discomfort now?
No, nothing hurts at all. It's just every once in a while I sound, a little bit like Humphrey Bogart, like we said, when I'm speaking. But I'm singing good.
When did you tell your mom that you wanted to be a performer? Hey, Mom, I want to be a star.
Oh, God, I never said that. I wanted desperately to be an ice skater. Really badly, because it had movement and it had music.
Style,
and it
sure.
was like flying, And when I was 13, she took me to see Bye Bye Birdie. And I saw all those kids up there. I thought, wait a minute, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do.
And when'd you tell her?
That night. I said, I'd rather do that, Mama. I'd rather be on Broadway, In the chorus. I just didn't care. I just wanted to dance on Broadway.
And what was Mom's response? What did Judy tell you?
She said, okay, let's go get a hot dog. She said, we'll talk about it later.
And didn't she say at the time, I think I read a story about this, where she said, it's okay, but don't sing my songs?
Oh, no. What happened actually was when I was 16, we come back here, and I was 16, I thought, I'm not going to be a mathematician. I got to go and work and start being crazy. So I asked her if I could go to New York to study and to audition. And she finally said, oh, well, all right. And so did my father. And she said, what are you going to sing at your auditions? And I said, I promise you I won't sing your songs.
Right.
And she looked at me with admiration. And she said, you promise? And I said, yes, Mom, I want to be my own girl. And I never want it to seem like I'm using you. Besides, who can sing those songs better?
Yeah.
I'd rather be a first-rate version of myself than a second-rate version of a genius,
Right.
And she said, okay. And she was smiling away. And I told my father what I had said in our discussion. And he said, you know something? There'll come a time when you'll change your mind about that. Just one day you'll feel it. And it won't be wrong. It'll be right. And I guess I was so grateful that this was all right, that I was feeling so healthy.
Right. That you got the notes back you'd lost.
Yes, and that I was standing on a stage again. That I loved standing on, That it was the only way I could figure out to say thank you. And, it's not, I don't sing over the rainbow, I wouldn't dare, But I just sang a chorus of, You Made Me Love You.
Hey, yep, that'd be the one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because it's the truth, about the audience and the stage and my parents and I don't know, it just seemed right.
And so when did you do that? What night, what concert, what venue, if you recall?
We were in Greece, singing at the Parthenon, a gig at the Parthenon. And it was so beautiful. And it was all lit up and everything was so pretty and the seats looked so gorgeous and so hard. It's all marble there. And all these ladies kind of trying to look comfortable and looking at you. And I suddenly thought of the beauty of life and of my luck and my preparation coming together at the same time, and of hard work which is what I love to do. I love to work. And I just got overwhelmed with joy. And I knew it was the right moment. And I just did it.
And what happened when you finished? What did the audience do? They go nuts?
I can't remember. I was so startled. I felt a huge connection with both my parents. And a funny kind of release in a way. It was lovely. It sounds corny as hell, but it happened.
No, it's not corny as hell, because, I mean, if there is one song, aside from Rainbow,
yes,
that we so identify with Judy Garland,
yes,
it's the one that starts, Dear Mr. Gable. You know, that's
yeah.
it.
Well, she used to love, when she would come and see me, she used to love that I sang all these acting songs by Aznavour, and, you know, that I found a way, because I never really thought of myself as a singer. I thought of myself as a dancer and an actress. But what I enjoyed was working with the lyric and making it mean something maybe a little bit different, or coming at it from a different point of view. And that's from my father's side.
Well, as you said, you were determined to be your own girl, and it turned out good, didn't it?
Thank you, John.
You are welcome. We'll continue here with Liza Minnelli and you on the toll-free. The new CD is called Gently. Liza performs at the Pantages Theater here in Los Angeles soon, and the toll-free is up and running at 1-800-952-2788. I'm Tom, and you're watching CBS. Back with Liza Minnelli. Here is Neil on the toll-free in Yonkers, New York. Hi, Neil, and welcome to CBS Late Night.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Liza. I'd like to know what you think about the tabloids writing all this stuff about you stars.
She sure has sold a lot of newspapers, hasn't she, Neil?
Sure has.
Oh, you know something? I don't have time to think about it because I'm always so busy working. I think that every celebrity goes through a point where it's their turn in the barrel. And it's
Right.
just been that. But you outlive that by your work and by what you do and by just showing up and doing your job.
And don't you think that if they haven't put you in the barrel for a couple, 2-3 years, they say, well, let's go back to Liza Minnelli or let's go back to
yeah.
whoever and find out if we can't find some more dirt on that person.
Yes, and for some reason it seems to... It sells. I mean,
Yeah.
I understand it. I understand it. If I was somebody living someplace I didn't like, and I could read that somebody who I thought was very lucky or had everything in the world...
Or was glamorous.
Yes, or was supposedly this, was having problems too, I'd feel better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I do understand. But it's just not true. Other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. But it's been fairly quiet recently, has it not?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
fine. You know something? I never know, Tom, because I'm always working. I'm always going to Greece or there or producing. I'm starting to produce things, and it's making my heart so happy. You know?
Neil, I'm glad you called, and thanks for watching.
And we missed you all week, Tom, and I'd just like to say to Liza, there's nothing like hearing your mother sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
I
love that
agree with
movie.
you. I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, have a good night now.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks for calling, Neil. Bye-bye. Be well.
Bye-bye.
It's been
Sweet.
it's been 25 years now since Sally Bowles
Yes.
and Cabaret and the Academy Award. As you prepared for that picture after its tremendous success on Broadway and on Roadshow, what was it like preparing for that picture, getting ready for it?
Well, it was so interesting because we were sent to Germany to make a musical about the Nazis.
Yeah.
So they weren't really, they thought, oh, this glamorous, this Hollywood is coming over here, you know. And the Munich studios got all kind of dressed up and repainted, and people were waiting, all the showgirls there and the beautiful dancers and these handsome actors. And they slapped them, if you remember Mine Hair, which was one of the numbers in the...
Yep.
They put bruises on these girls and Bobby Fosse put them into the most insane positions. And, you know, these people suddenly were in Nazi uniforms. They were really confused. Fred said maybe we should call it the Nifty Nazi Follies. You know?
And the night that you're at the Academy Awards, after you're nominated for your performance,
Yes.
and you're I don't know where the awards were 25 years ago, or the Pantages Theater, the Music Center, wherever they were.
Music Center.
Music Center.
Yes.
So you're there, and you notice that one of the other nominees, and I've read about this,
Yes.
has changed her dress. So what's going on there?
Well, it was Diana Ross. Everybody nominated that year. It was so wonderful. But I thought Diana Ross's performance was spectacular. You know, and I thought, boy, if she wins, I understand.
And she had a different dress on.
But she did change her dress.
Yeah.
She was up and she did something swell, as usual. But then she changed, like, a lot.
Yeah, the nerve of that woman.
Like, a lot. You know, and came down and sat in the audience. And I thought, well, that's it.
That's it.
You know, and I said to my dad, she knows something. And, Daddy, she must know something. She changed her dress. And he said, no, don't worry. And then when they announced my name, my father let out a holler in my ear that I still hear, you know, just still rings in my ear, and burst into tears. And I looked at him, and I thought, I'm so glad you're that proud of me. Do you know what I mean? That was the only thing I could think of. Because he was very quiet, shy, humble man, and so brilliantly talented. And for him to have that kind of reaction was really extraordinary.
What about the times you toured with dear Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and Liza Minnelli? What a show.
Wow.
What a show.
I mean,
as my father would say, if he would see that kind of a show, he'd say, you know, son, there's $1 million worth of talent up there on that stage. He says, Dad, you're about 9 million short.
No, but just, I replaced Dean Martin, is what happened. You know, something happened to him. I don't know what. They needed somebody else. And I kept saying, Uncle Fred and Sammy, why don't you get, like, Peggy Lee?
Yeah.
Or Lena Horne or somebody, you know, I mean, what do I have to do up there? So they said, no, we want you, kid. Come on, you're coming with us. And I was flattered, so I went. And the first night I stood on stage, and Sammy sang Birth of the Blues and was standing here. And I couldn't believe it. And then Frank started Witchcraft, and it was a medley I had written because they liked my taste in music. And I said, oh, who's going to write the medley? They said, you are. Okay. So I put it in a certain order. But they were singing. I was standing on stage with them when they were singing
Between
that.
Frank Sinatra Jr. and Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah. And they thought of me as their
Frank
kid.
Sinatra Sr., I'm sorry.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I'd known them since I grew up, like when I was a tiny baby.
When you were a kid, you worked here with your mom at Television City.
Yes.
You know, there's a gal I told you in the break. There's a lady who works here named Ann Nelson who's been here for a century. And she told a story. Didn't they have like a yellow brick road from the stage to your mom's trailer?
Yeah, well, they didn't have a dressing room for us. What happened? They had a trailer.
Well, the nerve of this network.
Jim Aubrey. No. They had built her a lovely trailer, and they had, put a yellow brick road and everything. I thought it was corny. Of course, I was 16 when snobby and everything like that. And I was doing a show called Best Foot Forward, an off-Broadway show in New York. And she said, come on out here and do my show. I said, why, Mama? Nobody knows me. She said, I like you and you're good. Come on out. And this was like only a year after I'd left. So to come back and do that with her was great fun. It's the only real TV show I ever did with her. Once we sang together at the Palladium. But my father came to see it filmed and everything. It was terrific. I love this building.
What is it like having Judy Garland as your mom, Vincent Minnelli as your dad? I mean,
I don't know.
But you're the keeper of a legend. I mean, you're your own girl, but you're the keeper of a legend.
I know, but I don't feel like that. I feel like they were my mother and father. And it's on that show, in fact, that I did with Mama here. Somebody says to me, wow, what does it feel like to call Mama Judy Garland? Or Judy Garland Mama? And I said, well, no, wait a minute, that's my mother. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
How can you call Judy Garland Mama? That's Mama. That's not. And it was funny because it was all, it was a bit that was done.
But I like the way you say
somebody. True.
I like the way you say somebody says to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like
somebody says to me. You can take the gal out of New York, but you can't.
That's right.
I want to ask you about a man that worked with me on the Tomorrow Show on NBC, Peter Allen, who was your first husband.
Yes.
Who was one of the great performers of my time, who I've seen perform, who died too young and passed away too soon. But his vitality and energy on stage, I mean, he, like you, worked his ass off on stage for people.
I know. I sing one of his songs, show. I just got all jumped up. Wait a minute. Sorry.
Okay. Need to do your exercises again? Okay.
It's just like a little emotional. He wrote a beautiful song called All the Lives of Me. which is about kind of what we're talking about the fact that you really are everybody you've met.
Right.
And you take a little bit, people give you things, and that's who you end up being. And it's called, like I said, On the Lives of Me.
He wrote a great song about your mom. You know, quiet, please. There's a lady on stage. Put your hands together, huh?
Yeah, it's so respectful.
Yeah.
Which is what she deserved.
Anyway, you're going to do a number for us tonight. It's called...
It Had to Be You.
What a great one, huh? Thanks for coming. I really appreciate your visiting us.
So
and
much.
break a lip over there at the Hey, you're gonna kill him. Huh?
Thank you.
Liza Minnelli will be at the Pantages Theater Thursday through Saturday here in Los Angeles. If you're in town, try and get a ticket. And the new CD is called Gently, and back with Liza and her friends after this timeout. Now here is Liza Minnelli and the Cortez Alexander Trio, and this is from the new CD, which is called Gently. Miss Minnelli, you're on.
It had to be you. It had to be you. I wandered around, finally found somebody who could make me be true. I've seen might never be me, might never be cross, try to be boss, they wouldn't choose for nobody else. Gave me the thrill with all your faults. I love you still. It had to be you, wonderful you. It had to be you. It had to be you.
Again, my thanks to Liza Minnelli and the Cortez Alexander Trio and the great Russell Kassoff on the piano for this song from the new CD. And do catch her at the Pantages Theater if you're in Los Angeles this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Back with the great Brett Butler of the Los Angeles Dodgers, San Francisco Giants, New York Mets, and Atlanta Braves after this timeout. Butler has one of the most inspirational stories in all of sports. He is winding down a 17-year Major League Baseball career with the Los Angeles Dodgers, now fighting for a world championship. But only a year ago, he was fighting for his life. His story is told in a new book called Field of Hope, and it's a treat to have Brett Butler, who was 3 for 3 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, with us tonight after a rare day game at Dodger Stadium here in Los Angeles. Congratulations on your day, 3 for 3.
Thanks a lot.
When did you know that there was trouble, that you had something wrong with your throat?
I think my wife recognized it a little bit more than I did. I started in right prior to spring training. Tonsillitis, okay, fine, we'll give you a few antibiotics.
Sure.
I went down to start spring training, went through the spring training, and went into a month of the season, and Evelyn came down with the kids and says, you know what, I just think that there's something wrong. You need to come home and get that tonsil taken out because it seems bigger to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something about women, and they have this intuition, and she knew it before I did.
And when you found out that it was cancerous, and you told your wife, I'm sure she had questions, and your kids had questions. What was that like with your family?
Well, my friend Bob Gatledge is the one who took out the tonsil, and so what he said is, I'll call you. I don't think it's cancer. It doesn't look like cancer. It doesn't cut like cancer. It doesn't adhere like cancer. So I'll just call you with the results when we find out. Well, when he came to the house that day, I was in pretty good pain because of the
surgery.
Surgery, and so that was really second on my mind. And so I got to the door, and he opened it up. He goes, let me feel your neck. And I was like, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And then I knew it before he even said it. And then Evelyn came in. He goes, come here, I want to talk to you guys. And we went into my den, and he said, you know, it's cancer. And Evelyn says I looked shocked to her. And I said, all right, well, walk me through it. And then we called the kids in. The kids asked all the tough questions. You know, is Dad going to die? Is he going to look like grandmother? Because my mother had just less than a year ago died of brain cancer, and her face and everything had changed from the antibiotics and all the other things medicine that she was on to try to help her prolong her life. And in turn, they were all answered, and from there we just kind of dealt with it accordingly.
And what about your own decisions when it came to radiation and/or chemotherapy?
Well, I think initially they said radiation, and then after a while we had some oncologists, chemotherapists come in and say, you know, we worked with some things, and this is a new thing out, and they gave me an article on it. I don't know, 150 some odd patients had gone through that, and 128 of them died. I said, well, why would I want to do this?
Yeah.
Well, we think it would help because maybe it got into your bloodstream. Well, I took all the information, all the correspondence. We had some wonderful people sending us all kinds of things. And I had people telling me on one side, hey, I went through all these things and I'm fine. And I had these others that said I didn't go through all these things and I was fine. So I had to kind of bring everything together.
Sure.
Evelyn couldn't make the decisions for me. The doctors couldn't do it. I had to do it. And I said, you know what? I believe it didn't get into my system. And why would I take a drug of poison and put it in these that maybe would numb my hands and my feet, possibly make me sick, lose my hair, with the thought that maybe it got into my blood system. I'm betting that it didn't. I'm going to go strictly with the radiation, and so far things have been
So
okay.
far, so good. And what about radiation? What is that like? Is that tough?
I think it's different for different people.
Was it debilitating in any way for you?
I believe it was. The way that they had broke it down to me was, well, the first week it's like taking a picture, x-ray picture. And I think the thing about it is it's tough initially because you have to go in there and they got to mark you and you can't move for an hour and they got to, just precise measurements, because if not, they're going to burn you or something can happen. And so the first week we went through was like taking a picture, one side here for 15 seconds, one side here, one side on the front. First week was like, well, this is pretty good. They said, well, the second week you'll get a little bit more fatigued, and then the third week your throat will start to hurt, and your fourth week it's going to really hurt, and the fifth week you're going to wish you were dead, and the sixth week you know it's over so you can get through it. They said you're going to lose a lot of weight. Well, here I was 162, 163
Yeah, you're not a large man to begin with.
And I said, I can't do that. So Evelyn came up with these shakes, Take Care, and the Ensure products and ice cream. And I was eating this stuff 3-4 times a day, and she'd bring it to me and I'd run from her. I'm like, oh, I don't need that anymore. But for the first 4 or 5 weeks, I didn't lose any weight, and they said I wouldn't be able to eat after about the third week. Well, I ate through about 5.5 weeks of it, and it really hit me in about the 6th week, where all of a sudden it was hard for me to do anything except drink the shakes.
Right.
And in turn, the 7th week was even worse because I had all these sores and everything in my mouth, and it's like a sunburn time after time after time, and it does take a lot out of you.
And how are you now? You look good. Are you okay now?
I feel pretty good. I mean, all the baseball stuff, the injuries
Well,
to
I
the
mean,
shoulder,
17
to
years,
all
and then you
that.
broke your hand or your
Yeah,
wrist.
that's nothing. All that stuff can heal. But to know that, hey, if I have no saliva, hey, if the alternative is death, you know, hey, I'm fine with this. It's just nice to be alive.
Now, no saliva because of the surgery?
From the radiation. When what the radiation did is it kind of killed the saliva glands, and now it's hard for that. Well, they don't even produce anything. Will that come back? Maybe it can, but we're not sure. And it's been a little over a year, so we don't know.
And how do you compensate for that? I know you drink
Constantly. I'm constantly drinking water. I have a water bottle with me constantly. Out in the outfield, they let me take a flask out there.
In fact, didn't Major League Baseball change a rule that a player couldn't take water on the field?
Well, we wanted to make sure the rule was right because the umpires take it out on the field. So it was like, can Brett Butler walk out there with a bottle? Well, we don't want it to take away from the game, and so we had to just make sure that the rules were right, and I went according to the rules to do it, and we haven't had any problem with it.
Well, I would think not. I mean, geez, you know, you gotta keep some moisture in your mouth out there in the outfield on those hot afternoons at Dodger Stadium. And your mom, you mentioned that your mom passed away from cancer, but she got to see you play one last time.
Yeah, she was in Chicago, and basically we had brought in hospice, and they said, you know, she's bedridden, she's not going to be able to do this anymore, and she can't go out. And my mother says, either I'm going to die here at the house or I'm going to die at Wrigley Field, but I want to see my son play. And I'm brutal in Chicago. That's where I grew up. I was born here, but I grew up high school and all that in Chicago, and I'm terrible. I don't know why in Wrigley Field. Maybe I tried too hard. That particular 2 or 3 days, I think I got 12 hits and 15 at bats, and she was up in the stands, and it was just like Lord just opened it up and allowed me to do very well while she was there, and it's something that I'll never forget.
What about the first at-bat when you came back from your bout with cancer at Dodger Stadium in September of last year?
In 17 years, it's probably one of the most moving moments for me in all of my life. To walk up there, I was just overcome with emotion. It was like everybody was a part of it. You know, all the prayers and all the people that got on their knees for me throughout the country, not only the people in the stands and in Los Angeles and Atlanta and everywhere I played, but everybody. It was like a miracle that people could say, you know what, I was a part of that. And for them to stand up and cheer me, it was overwhelming.
What's it like when you hit your first big league homer?
My first big league homer was off of Mario Soto. I can remember, I think it was 82. I went 1 for 4. I struck out 3 times after that.
That's okay.
You know, I was a couple of balls, and I said, all right, he throws hard, about 95, just put the bat on the ball, and I hit a home run. The next day was at home in Atlanta off of Nolan Ryan, again, him throwing 95, and those are, I only have 50-some on in my whole career, so there are some that stick out more than others, but those are a couple that I remember.
Is it great when the first one goes over the wall?
Oh, of course, because they look at me and say, look at that little guy. There's no way that he can do this. And they really get upset because they expect the big guys to do it periodically. Well, I made a bad pitch, but when a little guy does it, I think it eats at him a little bit more.
We're with Brett Butler. His book is called Field of Hope, and we'll be right back after this break. With Brett Butler, here's James on the toll-free in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Hello.
How you doing, Tom?
I'm fine, James. Thanks for calling. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Brett if he'd used chewing tobacco and if he thought that it contributed to his throat cancer.
James, I did use chewing tobacco in the early 80s, and could it have contributed? Maybe. I'm not saying it didn't, but it could have. But I quit. I did it for about 2 years, and I put on a clinic with Phil Necro and Tom Paciorek back in the early 80s, and after we were done, this little 10-year-old boy walked up to me and says, look, I dip because you do. And I looked at this little boy, and I said, you know what, I need to be a positive example. If you promise me you quit, I'll quit. You won't see me dip again, and haven't dipped since. So maybe it could have been a contributing factor. You never know. I think the tobacco situation is tough on anybody's body, but who am I to say?
Okay.
Thanks for calling, James, and thanks for watching.
What's up, Jam?
You were with the Giants when Dave Gravecki was there, and we all remember his battle. I mean, we've all seen the videotape. We've heard the bone snap in the arm when he wound up that time. Were you and he close there?
Oh, yeah. Dave and I are still very, very close. When I got sick, he called me. There's a lot of parallels there. You know, Dave, they said he'd never pitch again. He says, hey, if God wanted me to pitch, I'll pitch. He went ahead and pitched. 5 days later in Montreal's when he broke his arm. You know, they told me I wouldn't play that year, you know, and I did play. And then 5 days later, I broke my hand. So there's some parallels there. And when I was sick, Dave was on the phone to encourage me and lift me up, and that's what friends are all about.
You were on the floor for the Earthquake World Series, on the stadium floor.
504. I was running sprints, and The thing that's scary about that is everybody except my children, my wife, my friends, everybody was in the stands. If the stadium would have fallen, I would have lost everybody. But it was something that really put everything into perspective.
Could you see the stand shaking? Could you hear the groaning and creaking when it?
Well, it's not groaning and creaking. It's like a train. It's like here it comes, and what you're thinking. All of a sudden, I thought people were banging their feet.
Yeah.
I thought that's what was going on, and all of a sudden the generator blew, and all of a sudden the windows were shaking. Then we knew, and from there it was just get everybody out of the stands. Made me realize that it's just a game, that lives are more important, and that's was very, very humbling.
When you were ill, I'm sure that you heard from Lasorda, from Tommy.
Tommy called me more than anybody else. Tommy's like a father figure. There were some people that looked at Tommy and with the way he ran a ball club and the way he talked and the way he was with
Tommy's
players.
a character.
I tell you what, Tommy is there's only one Tommy Lasorda, and to me he's like I said, a father figure. I loved playing for him, and it was a sad day when he retired, and I'll tell you what, he's a tremendous ambassador for the game.
The last game in Atlanta, I mean, I remember you with the Atlanta Braves, you know, when you broke into the big leagues, and I mean, Rhett Butler in Atlanta, I mean, it was made in heaven, you know?
The last game was, I was sitting on the bench, and Billy let me hit in the 7th inning, and I kind of walked out there, and I just kind of looked around. It was in Turner Field, so it wasn't in Fulton County Stadium, which it probably would have meant a little bit more to me, but the fact that there were people in the stands that still said, you know, there was a sign that said, thanks for the memories, and to me, it's gone so fast. And, you know, my dream was to play 1 year in the big leagues, and the Lord's blessed me with parts of 17 years. I never fathomed I'd play this long. And I'll tell you what, the game's been great for me, and hopefully I'll leave a positive impression.
Oh, there's no question about that. You'll leave a very positive. But I remember you with the Atlanta Braves. I followed the Braves because as a boy I lived in Milwaukee, and the Braves played there. And then they moved to Atlanta, but I still follow the ball club to this day.
Those powder blue uniforms, remember those?
Oh, I sure do. Yeah, they came from Boston, Spawn and Sane, and Pray for Rain. We had a guy there named Joe Adcock, the first baseman, Big Joe, who I think is the only guy to ever hit it over the roof of the Polo Grounds back in the 50s. So I have very fond memories of the Braves as a kid. What about when you come up for the last time this season? Because you said this is it. After 17 years, Brett Butler is going on to bigger and better things. But when you step up there for the last time, that's going to be, I would think, a very emotional moment for you.
Well, I think so. It'll be bittersweet, though. You know, part of me loves the game. It's been in my, in my being ever since I was 6 years old. But the other part of it is, you know what, it's time. I wanted to be able to go out on my own terms, and this way I'm able to do it. You know, I would have retired last year if, in fact, I didn't believe this team had a chance of winning the World Championship. And I honestly believe that this is some of the best talent I've played with. And early we looked like Jekyll and Hyde. There were days we looked good and days where we looked bad. But I still believe to this day that this team can win the World Championship. And so to win it or not, and to know the last time when I walk up there, like I said, yeah, it'll be very emotional, but you know what? Every day I went out there, I gave it everything that I've got, and I have no regrets whatsoever about anything that's happened in this game.
And next year, what are your plans?
Well, I'm going to go home, and I'm going to have surgery on both shoulders after the season at some point. I'm going to Jerusalem. I want to go and see the Promised Land for 2 weeks in December. And then after January, we'll have the surgery. Then from there, I'll just let God direct me where he wants me to be.
I don't have a sign to hold up, but thanks for the memories, for all of them. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Rhett Butler is the guest. The book is called Field of Hope, and the Dodgers will be tied for first place in the National League West if the Giants lose tonight. We'll be right back after this break. Thanks, the Lassie story involves Jim Aubrey, who used to run this network, who was taking an overnight flight back to New York in the 50s and couldn't get a sleeper seat. And he walked from his first-class seat to the lavatory, and he noticed a dog sleeping in the berth. And he went back to the flight attendant. He says, "What is that bleeping dog doing?" And she says, "That bleeping dog is Lassie." Tomorrow night, Marcia Clark is here, and Peter Fonda, and my thanks to the great Russell Kassoff on the piano. I like saying the great Russell Kassoff. Tonight's program segments were produced by John Skura and Connie Patsalis. My thanks for that. And tomorrow night we'll have Peter Fonda and Marcia Clark, and of course the magic of you on the toll-free line. I'm T.S. reminding you that a clear conscience is usually the sign of a very bad memory. Back tomorrow night, same time, same station. Sleep tight, America, and thanks for watching. Good night, all.